In these troubled times, join me in this peaceful Monday, Thursday morning by the riverside. People think that being religious means singing songs and saying liturgy and all of that. And actually, it's about a relationship with Jesus, hanging out with Jesus. There's nothing wrong with the ritual side, but we have to be careful that it's not empty and loveless. And Jesus had his harshest words for the religious leaders of the day who were hypocrites, who insisted on rituals and actually missed out on the love part of it. So just park that for a moment. Let me tell you about Isaiah. Isaiah is my favorite book in the Old Testament. Some of it's a bit difficult to understand, but I love some of the later bits. Let me read you parts of it. There's Isaiah 53, which is a prophecy hundreds of years before Jesus lived about his life. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, familiar with suffering. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. And then there are so many lovely bits. Isaiah 55, come all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat, come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and your soul will delight in the richest of fare. Brilliant stuff. And then Jesus quotes from Isaiah 61 at the beginning of his ministry. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release for the prisoners, and proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. But my favourite chapter, whole chapter, well, maybe my favourite, is Isaiah 58, which is really about religious hypocrisy. It was, I guess, addressed to Israel in the day, in the 8th century BC. But it applies to many nations and people now. And I think especially Israel today. I think today you tend to be characterized as pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And if you criticize Israel, it's assumed you're in a particular camp. But that's not how God sees it. And Isaiah has he's very critical, but it's constructive criticism with amazing promises. So listen to this with that in mind, but not just Israel, beyond that. This is Isaiah 58. Shout it out aloud, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Declare to me their rebellion, and to the house of Jacob their sins. For day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near to them. Why have we fasted, they say, and you've not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you've not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen, only a day for a man to humble himself? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and lying on sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter when you see him naked, to clothe him, and to turn away and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, here I am. If you do away with a yoke of oppression, with a pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. I think those are incredibly powerful words for many people, many nations, but that kind of desire to bless Israel through my call of standing alongside his people in the West Bank, in Palestine, that's all part of the motivation. I can waffle on for ages, so I shall leave it there, and hopefully you will join me tomorrow. Thanks for listening.